What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to another Fridge Financials video. In today's video, we look at an article from Yahoo Finance talking about Gen Zers are so disillusioned with the economy, they think it's okay to commit fraud. So that piques my interest. A lot of these articles, you know, that I cover on Yahoo Finance and on Forbes and on Bloomberg and everything else, all these articles that, I see these titles, piques my interest. This one absolutely did. So if you're excited for today's video, make sure that you smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you've already done so, and turn on the bell notifications for all future uploads. Yeah, so again, this article came out July 3rd, so about 10 days ago at the time of recording this video here, and Gen Zers are so disillusioned with the economy, they think fraud is okay. Okay, sure, man. So this article is from Chris Nagel, I believe is how you would say his name. So each quarter, my company SIFT produces an index report to better understand the latest online fraud trends, including how businesses and consumers are affected, emerging fraud tactics, and how fraud impacts consumer behavior when making purchases online. So that's what his company does. They look at the data behind the fraud of things, consumers, purchases, all that kind of stuff there. The e-commerce domain, essentially you want to call it. E-commerce is the, shopping, but it's digitalized and everything else. For the past 2 quarters, we've seen a surprising generational divide emerge. Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2012, thank God it's not me, I am before that, which is, don't put me in this category, please, expresses more willingness than any other generation to commit digital fraud. Okay, and of course, as we always do, we can't make statements without backing it up with some data and everything else. If you want to look at this article here, I believe it's linked right here on this Yahoo Finance page, but just covering the data here to look at what they say and what they found. In quarter 4, 2023, so you look at it towards the end of last year, 42% of Gen Zers admitted a willingness to engage in first-party fraud. Admitted a willingness to do it. Not that they did it, but they admitted that they were like, yeah, I might do some fraud. No big deal, right? Let me just, imagine like there's like a cop like under the table just being like, and you're going to jail because you're openly wanting to commit fraud. Not the case, but how interesting is that? Admitted, how would you be like, I don't understand. I mean, I wouldn't want to tell people I'm committing fraud or I'm open to committing fraud. Not that I'm doing it. Hey, I don't mind doing some fraud. I think it's really interesting to think about that people are actually answering that question. These people are looking at how old they'd be. They'd be 20, 27, around 27, and then to 2012, you're looking at 12. Yeah. I mean, so the thing with these polls every time, and I say this with every video that I talk about here, the problem with these videos, or not the problem, but there's always that possibility about who is your audience. If you're interviewing and surveying Gen Zers, who is it that you're doing it to? Because this age group right here, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, I should say. You're looking at a 15-year gap here, right? So 27 years old all the way down to 12. 12-year-olds are like, yeah, who cares? I'll commit fraud. Because they haven't developed that much, mentally to understand good decisions versus bad decisions sometimes. They're still learning in the process. As someone who's a high school teacher, we see this all the time, right? Where students make bad choices, they make bad decisions because they haven't fully understood that. They're not fully matured yet. So I would be interested to know what ages of Gen Z were part of this data here. So just something to think about in the back of your head as we go through the numbers here, that it's a huge gap. So 15 years. So just really interesting to think about. So with the payment, which they dispute. So the first party fraud essentially is where they dispute a purchase with their payment provider despite the purchase being legitimate. So basically you buy something on your credit card, it's a legit transaction, everything else, and then you go to the credit card company and be like, oh no, I didn't do that, that wasn't me, and they'll refund you that thing, and you'll still get the product, quote unquote. That's what their logic is, right? Random side story. I remember at one point I got flagged on my credit card. It wasn't me actually. So somebody bought like $100 and something of ice cream on my credit card, and I called the credit card company and I was just like, that's not me. They're like, you sure? I'm like, look, I love ice cream, guys. I'm not buying $100 worth of it. I'm just not. So, fraud is everywhere. People, it happens to people more than you think, honestly. So anyway, this was significantly higher than any other generation. The next highest was millennials, only 22% admitting to engage in first-party fraud. This quarter, we discovered that 33% of Gen Z respondents either know someone who has participated in fraud or have done so themselves. Again, these rates are much higher than any other generations. Hence the title, Gen Z wants to commit fraud. Because out of all the different age groups, they're the highest one, right? So this data might seem sensational, but if we explore it more deeply, it's very telling. Academics has a theory called the fraud triangle. Ooh. I'm a math teacher, so you think of shapes like, oh my God, you're bringing math in this? Yeah, kind of, but which argues that people are more inclined to commit fraud if they have incentive, rationalization, and opportunity. So those are the three, they say the fraud triangle. I think of it more as like a stool. Like you have three supports on a stool. So you have those three pillars, essentially, however you want to look at it. But, whatever. I don't write these articles. I don't work for Yahoo Finance. I wish I did, though. So Gen Z is facing persistent and diverse financial challenges. Aren't we all? Gen Z has a number of unfortunate economic factors to feel anxious about. A survey from Intuit found that 73% of Zoomers, which is the Gen Zs, these names get so weird. These names are so confusing to me at times. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Feel that the current economic environment has made it more challenging to save money. Yeah, that's a fact. But it's not just Gen Z. The boomers, some of the baby boomers are probably going through it still. Millennials are going through it still. Gen Z is going through it still. It's not just Gen Z. So they're like, oh, we're going through some hard challenging money. Yeah, so are we, buddy. Okay. But the difference is we're not going out there and admitting that we're going to do some fraudulent purchases and whatever, or commit first-party fraud and file those kind of things. But everybody's going through the same things. A lot of us are going through the same kind of economic downfalls and those economic struggles, where it's paycheck to paycheck with rising groceries and inflation and everything else. We're all going through that, right? So the struggle with increasing housing costs. Yeah, same. Again, so I am not Gen Z. I'm dealing with this, with rent and not being able to buy a house. Student loan debt, I did pay that off, thankfully, but I have friends that are in my same age group, student loan debt, and rising prices of everyday purchases like groceries, all while wages have stagnated for workers across many income levels. Everybody's doing the same thing. It's not just like the economy is like, ooh, Gen Z, let's target you guys and make your life miserable. Everybody's doing it. These factors snowball into a financially stressful situation that makes it more challenging to afford day-to-day necessities. Yep. Unsurprisingly, more economic anxiety can inspire people to look for tactics to stretch every dollar. For most, this behavior is innocuous. I don't know. I'm a math teacher. I'm not going to lie at the end of the day. So clipping coupons, switching from name brand to generic items, or shopping secondhand. Yep. Okay. So that's how you can save money the legal way. Woo! In fact, Gen Z is also more likely to shop for secondhand items online, with 42% of the generation purchasing a resale item in the past year. But facing the wrong set of circumstances, some people will turn to stolen payment methods. Now we're into the illegal side. Woo! Bad idea, guys. Hey, don't be going through this, right? Or chargebacks to get more with less. In these situations, consumers may rationalize fraudulent behavior. So again, the three pillars are rationalization, incentive, opportunity. Here's rationalization, right? May rationalize fraudulent behavior by convincing themselves that their actions are necessary or justified given the economic environment. Oh, it's because of the economy. I can do fraud. It's okay. That makes no logical sense. Economy's fault. The thing I've realized a lot over these years is that it seems like a lot of people have a hard time taking accountability for things. And I feel like instead of being like, oh, you know what? We're in a situation. I'm going to own up to it. I'm going to fix it. They're like, oh, it's the economy's fault, so I'm going to do this now. There's no accountability for a lot of people these days. It's really interesting to think about. Again, by convincing themselves that their actions are necessary. They may view their actions as a temporary solution or even as a moral gray area with few consequences to anyone. Okay. It's against the law. And laws have consequences, as you would know. But, they approach brand loyalty differently. This is definitely a very, very interesting point as well. So Gen Z may see large corporations as a cause for these broader economic challenges, making them less likely to view stealing from them as immoral. They may see this behavior as a victimless crime, as the companies they are transacting with are often industry behemoths. We basically have modern-day Robin Hoods out here. Take from the rich, give to the poor. We're the poor. We're going to commit fraud and take from the rich and da-da-da-da and do this and do that and do this. What? And again, it talks about that's why they talk about brand loyalty, right? So like if you're not as connected to the brand, you're gonna be like, yeah, I'll commit fraud. I don't care. Amazon? I'm not connected to Amazon. Jeff Bezos got billions of dollars. I can just commit fraud. It's like what, $5 to him? Like who cares? And that's the logic, right, behind everything. And the problem is, again, like they're reasoning and justifying committing fraud, which is illegal. You know, I'm sure you would hate if someone did fraud against you, right? Like I said, someone used my credit card to buy ice cream. Thankfully, my credit card was able to cancel the transaction. I got a new card and everything else. But the idea behind it is like, imagine like you're the one having fraud committed on you. It's all fun and games until the tables turn and everything's reversed, and then you're put in the situation, right? So they're thinking like, oh, because these corporations are the big problem with the economic challenges, they're raising prices and everything else. Like that's the issue. This talks more about name recognition alone and look at cheaper goods, try new brands, all that kind of stuff there. Here's what my point is before we go on to the last topic here. My point I want to make about is this, right, with brand loyalty especially, and the idea of committing fraud with multi-billionaires and millionaires, and that way we, who are the poor, are going to be doing it, right, are going to benefit from it. It's the modern day Robin Hood with committing fraud here. It's that rationalization, right? The way I look at it is this, right? And this is my kind of take about every action has a reaction, right? Every cause has an effect. Every this has a that, right? So imagine you're committing fraud, like a lot of it, right? So here's some data here to back this up. As you will see here, e-commerce, which is online retail, has been going up through the years and years and years. It's projected to grow up to 7.9 trillion in 2027. So shopping online is going to just keep growing and keep growing and keep growing, right? And where's the fraudulent purchases? Right here. It's down here towards the bottom. Here we go. 41 billion was lost in e-commerce in 2022. This is 2022. So 2 years ago, $41 billion was lost. 48 is expected to be lost in 2023. I bet it'll be higher. I wouldn't doubt it. And the average monetary loss in an e-commerce scam is $101, up from 96 from the year before. Okay, this is where my problem is, right? Imagine you're like a huge corporation, right? Walmart, Target, Amazon, whatever. And, you have like $1 billion lost in fraud. So you look at all their revenue, you look at their balance sheets, you look at $1 billion. So say like Walmart loses $1 billion in fraud in the year. Again, I'm making it up as an example here, right? But $1 billion is lost, and Walmart, the board, gets together and says, hey guys, it's the end of the year, but we've lost $1 billion in fraud. I think two things happen in that kind of instance. One, again, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? And people have to recuperate that loss in fraud. And there's two ways you can do that come to my mind. A, raising prices to try to counteract, right? That's how it always is, right? When you have not as much supply, when you're having one thing go down, one goes up, right? So if you're losing money here, you got to cut back on spending, or you got to increase prices. So they could increase prices, making things still expensive. Oh, but inflation makes it expensive. But committing fraud might make it worse, right? Think about it. If these companies are losing billions of dollars, they're going to sit there and be like, you know what? Let's raise our prices to counteract it. First thing. Second thing that I think could happen is layoffs. That $1 billion could go towards funding thousands of people's jobs. So your Aunt Sally, who works at Walmart, might get her job cut because they don't have the funds to pay for it because they lost $1 billion in fraud. Oh, now it impacts you directly. So these are extreme cases to think about here, but it's not just like, oh yeah, we'll commit fraud and be fine. It's never going to impact us. And the problem is that I think a lot of people these days don't understand that the idea behind life and around us is that if people think if it doesn't impact me, I don't care. If it doesn't impact my life, I don't care. And these actions right here are an example of saying, even though it doesn't impact you right away, it might impact you down the line. Imagine that your aunt gets laid off. Imagine that your mom gets laid off. Your mom can't work now. Now you're the one bringing money in for your household at your family, but your mom's not working, and now you have to put more money and spend more money to pay for things, right? Imagine prices go up because they keep losing money in fraud. So what are they going to do to counteract it? They're just going to raise prices up. They raise prices up, you're losing more money then. Like it's not, you can't just be like, I'm going to tag big business here and make it happen and we're going to make a difference here, because they have all that control over pricing, over, products and everything else. It's not easy thing to do. So the fact that they're thinking that like, oh, it's fine to steal from big companies, it does potentially have a longer term impact, whether you know it or not. That's just my 2 cents. Now, if you made this far in the video so far and you have any comments, feel free to leave them down in the comment section down below. Again, I'd love to hear your feedback, your ideas. If you think you're on the same page as me, great. Let me know down below. If you think I'm going out of my mind, obviously let me know down below as well. I like to think about things in like a broader perspective of things. So, and of course, the digitally, native, because technology is everywhere. More people get their news on social media, which is a bad idea, as we've learned from Fridge Financials, of course. Thank you guys so much for 173 awesome subscribers, and this video here is blown up 420 views in 2 days. I absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate that. But if we go down to TikTok teaching tax fraud, hey, look at that. I made a video about this 4 months ago, about how TikTok was trending with teaching how people can commit tax fraud. And now we're just talking about just doing fraud in general now. How cool is that? Nothing is changing here. And that's the crazy thing and the scary thing about social media. So they're talking about all that stuff there. So Sid Data finds that 34% of Gen Zers have seen offers to take part in online fraud compared to only 9% of boomers. That's just logic, right? Boomers don't have technology, or they do not have as much. They don't have the accessibility to technology as much. They don't know how to use it as much as Gen Zers do. So of course it's gonna be a lot higher. But 34% are like getting like a For You page has fraud on it. That's crazy. And then you can read more about this article about they talk about some proven approaches included and all that stuff like that. So thank you so much for watching. I made this fun video, of course. Thank you so much for still being here. I appreciate it. It's a little longer video, but I hope I gave you some perspective as to what is people thinking these days. It's absolutely wild. So Gen Z is disillusioned and thinks it's okay to commit fraud. I'm not a police officer or anybody that works for the federal government or anything else. I think that is a bad idea, so please do not commit fraud, because that will not go well. Just like it does not go well for people that are doing tax fraud, because that also has consequences of actions. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Again, if you made this far, please consider subscribing to the channel. Make sure you leave any feedback down below in the comment section and smash the thumbs up button. I hope you guys are making money in the market and not trying to make money by committing fraud. And I will see you guys in the next video.